Hey everybody. So, you're probably asking yourself, Micah, why on earth are you doing a live overflow? And is Hatman here? The answer to the second question is no. The answer to the first question is because Hatman's not here. I need something to play off of. Because I recorded the overflow and it was literally 17 minutes long. I'm like, that's not good enough. I'm clearly not doing any entertaining there. So I said, why don't we go ahead and do something live, gives people the chance to have some fun. I didn't set a donation goal, but if there's any mods here, just remind everybody, if we get $25, I'll do the whole reaction to the Emperor has a text-to-speech machine. So anyway, let's go ahead and do some stuff real quick. Yeah, Mr. E, I hope you're doing all right out there in Hong Kong. I know I hadn't heard from you in a while, because I know that you and I had talked about some VA stuff. So I hope you're doing okay, and hopefully we'll still get to do that in the future. Anyway, but my prayers go out to everything, because the coronavirus is scary, to say the least. So, if nothing else, you can always blame Leon Kennedy for it. Keep that in mind. All right. So, before we get started, you know something that's kind of bullshit? What's kind of bullshit is comic books. And let me kind of show you guys what I mean. Not jihadi jackass here, but rather this. Let me zoom in a little bit if it'll let me. It's not letting me. Shit. Okay. Open image in new tab. Maybe that'll work. There we go. So Mags Visaggio says here, I recently submitted a request proposal at Image. I sent the email at 6:24 last night. At 6:26, I received this. Sold, Eric Stevenson, publisher, Image Comics Incorporated. Gotta be a record. Coming at you in 2020 with books like, and it's a gif of Mojo Jojo throwing presents. The problem is that the comic book shops that are getting those presents are going, no, we don't want these. These look like shit. Because generally speaking, that's Mags Visaggio for you. She's a terrible writer. And I say she because I'm being very, 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 very gracious. More so than I usually am. And then the next thing that she says here in her Twitter thread is, it's the big battle and I hate writing big battles. I'm in the middle of writing a 10-page fight scene. I hate it. What are you doing in comic books? Oh, dear God. So, and by the way, to all of our British fans, happy Brexit Day. To say the least, I'm very, very happy that it's happening. Nigel Farage's final speech at the EU Parliament was brilliant, and the fact that they cut off his mic once he started waving the British flag was just icing on the cake, man. So yeah. Anyway, I just wanted to kind of throw that out there because Jesus Tap Dancing Christ, comic books don't even give a shit about whether or not people want to read something. They care about the identity of the person pitching it. I have a feeling that if I started identifying as Michaela Curtis and started wearing a dress and started pitching stuff to Image and shit like that, I'd probably have like 10 comics right now. Maybe I should do that. And no, Koopa, you're not wrong there, and it's perfectly fine, man. Like I'm finally finishing up being on the mend. Yeah. So you're good, man. But yeah, it's not because it was a Micah show. The reason I'm doing it live is because I recorded the overflow. And I got through all of the questions. And I realized that it was like 17 minutes because I didn't have somebody to play off of. So I'm like, well, why not do it live? Find an excuse to actually have some people to talk to, and then I can actually do a little bit more with what I'm doing. So let's go ahead and get to everybody's questions from the last week I wasn't able to get to. Let's see here. And Shadow Sonata says, you have to go to indie comics to find anything good. It's Jawbreaker, Cyberfrog, Blade Devil, among others. Yeah, Raging Golden Eagle's Blade Devil looks pretty good. The art's fantastic. Obviously a manga style. It's kind of interesting. Again, you're having more and more people that are doing these books that like have a larger manga influence than comics of years past. You know, you have Blade Devil from Raging Golden Eagle. Englewood has quite a bit of manga influence, more so because of the artist than the writer, I'll admit. And then my buddy Liam Gray is doing a book called Xenotype, which is very manga inspired too. So, excuse me. All right. So let's go ahead and get into the questions, though. Politics is what we're going to start with, just because I really want to get the depressive stuff out of the way. If I'm yawning a lot, it's because I'm fighting my medication right now. I'm trying to get back to a sleep schedule that's somewhat human, so I can get back to work on Monday. And then finally, this whole depression, anxiety, migraine brouhaha will finally be fucking over, because I'm so sick of being sick and tired all the time. It's not a good way to live. All right. So let's go ahead and get to it. So Daniel Parker had asked, why do cities that lean heavily left progressive push diversity tend to have the worst racial tensions? Well, that's because progressive is like there's different layers to it, but I think that there's a couple key things to keep in mind. First off, progressivism doesn't have any answers to anything. It claims diversity and inclusion, says that this is our strength, but that's all it really does. Whenever there is an issue going on in the community, it doesn't have any tangible answers because it's not based on really getting down to the dirty of what's going on in the community and figuring out what the actual problem is. It simply mires things in identity politics as if that really matters when it comes to someone's rights being violated or something along those lines, which oftentimes is what creates the tensions. The second thing is because it relies on a victim narrative, and that's why victim-based identity politics are always going to lead to conflict from one group to another. You know, if you find, and that's why I always tell people, if you find that someone's entire pitch is based purely on victimhood or relies heavily on them being a martyr or a victim, it's not somebody you really want to listen to, because they're not really going to be giving anything to you in regards to answers for anything and a way forward. A servant of God donated $1, says, did you see the video of Nancy being called a liar? Again, this thing is cutting donations off. There we go. By Dreamers. No, I did not. So that will have to be something I check out. But anyway, to continue to answer the question, but because it relies on victim narratives and separating people into groups, it's not really going to try to resolve anything whenever problems arise. You know, it's always going to just take one side, and whichever side they think is going to get them the most votes, that's what they're going to do. Progressivism kind of comes across like a pyramid scheme, you know, politically speaking. You know, it's all about who is the biggest victim and who can I demonize by using this victim to make sure I get elected. You know? Servant of God's going to send that to me on Twitter. I'll check my mentions real quick. Whoa. So yeah, let me know when it's sent, and I'll keep that up. But yeah, Because the big thing is that if I were to... How do I put it this way? The instant that something starts becoming purely based on race and not on facts, you know that there's a problem. And there's a problem in the community because the community is making an assumption. So, yeah, it never has the answers. You know, it just constantly keeps people in this sort of spiral of nonsense. And it's a terrible, terrible thing. So, okay. Let's see here. Let me see if I can get this queued up. And we'll watch it real quick. Here we go. If it'll play.
You have been fighting deportation? Yes, I am. Yes, I am. You do not. You don't know what you're talking about.
Oh, no. Well, that's interesting. Speaking of which, this is you know what, Servant of God, that was very well timed with the Overflow question. Because this is a prime example of progressivism not having any answers. They sit there and say that, hold on one second. I gotta have a look at this. Hey, Hardboiled, undo that. He didn't say anything wrong. Anyway, Angry Green Boss, if you're watching this, I apologize. That was a little bit of you shouldn't have gotten timed out for that. Hardboiled, if you can't undo it, then leave it be. But just saying that I don't get the obsession with the diversity isn't against the rules. He's not saying anything negative about another people group. Anyway, but yeah, like there's obviously Nancy Pelosi obviously not having the power to if there's not a way to do it, don't worry about it. But and Nancy Pelosi obviously does not have the power to really do anything about these deportations because Donald Trump's the head of the executive branch. What is she gonna do? The fact of the matter is that these promises are made and they're not really anything tangible. Just saying, I will fight for you. Well, what are you going to do? And hey, Nola Nerd. But yeah, that's generally how that goes. Is there's never any answers, and it's always playing on victim narratives to get votes. But eventually, again, they turn on you, and Pelosi's getting it there, and she completely dismisses what the crowd is saying, and how pissed off they are because they feel they got lied to, All right, next question. Autist Whisperer says, thoughts on a scientist creating living robots with cells from frogs? So cyber frogs. Scientists are creating cyber frogs. I have no words. Aside from the fact that I actually read Cyber Frog last night. And still a good book, man. Ethan's a pretty good writer. All right. Let's see. What else is the chat saying? Supreme Atheist Intellect says the sequel trilogy is worse than the prequel trilogy. I would agree. I would very much agree. I don't really like either of them that much, but the prequels definitely have more merit as films. And they have things that can really be enjoyed. So. And I actually do, for the most part, like Revenge of the Sith. Except for, well, Anakin, honestly. That and the, but I'm so in love with you scene is trash. But I don't think a lot of people are gonna debate that. So, anyway, next question. Alpha Incel wants to know, opinion on China supposedly suppressing info on the coronavirus. I wish Mr. E hadn't just left. He could actually tell us a little bit about that on the ground. But he has he's mentioned a little bit of it. Let me go up and read some of his comments real quick. I don't think they were in relation to that. It says here, Hong Kong in double trouble, plagues galore, and so much more. Just basically that the coronavirus is going on at the same time as the Hong Kong situation is. And again, I'm not surprised. I mean, it's China. They're an oppressive, communist government. Like that's what they're going to do. But beyond that, of course, they're a tyrannical communist government. Fuck China, fuck them.
Fuck them.
So, but anyway, yeah, I'm not really surprised by it. I at all. It's disgusting and it's evil, but I'm hoping that a vaccine can get figured out soon, because it has the potential to spread to many other places. I know that there was a guy in Germany who contracted it. Supposedly there's a guy in the United States who contracted it as well. So, Tom the Fish says here, potential VP picks. I'm betting if Biden gets the nomination, he's going to pick my boy Yang. Nope, not going to happen. He will not. I will tell you right now, he is not going to be the person. Yang is not going to get picked. So the current two frontrunners of the Democratic Party are Joe Biden and Bernie Sanders. I am still saying in the long run, how do I not get into copyright trouble with that button? I know, right? It's almost as if it's used through fair use. It's almost like everything that I've done on this podcast is through fair use. I've actually had fights with YouTube over that, It's why I'm hesitant to make this channel monetized when we hit 1,000 subscribers, which, by the way, we are very close to. I think we're 7 away from what I last saw. Let me double check that. 8 away. 8 more subscribers and we hit 1,000, and then we can apply for monetization if people want us to. I kind of don't. Just because I would rather, or at least I don't want to use super chats. I prefer just using Streamlabs. So, anyway. But for VP picks, I would say if Biden gets it, he will probably pick, he's probably going to pick a sitting senator or representative. I don't think that he would pick, if he did pick somebody from the field, my money would be on Kamala Harris, or Cory Booker. And if, or Beto, I could see him doing Beto as well. One of those 3. Because I have a feeling that the reason that those 3 dropped out was for that exact reason. Is because they were probably promised a VP thing, because I have no reason to think that Cory Booker and Kamala Harris and Beto O'Rourke are so willing to give up the chance at being the most powerful person in the world, So, I am of the opinion that the reason that they dropped out is because they are biding their time. I think that's the reason. That's just my opinion, though. I could be wrong there. Now, if it's Bernie, Yang's a possibility as VP. I would put my money on Tulsi, though, because she's campaigned for him in the past. And they share similar politics. You know, she's very far to the left in comparison to a lot of other people in the field. So that would be my where I would put money. Edward Marlis is here. Hey man, glad to see you with us. Let's see who else. Crystal Hydra's here too. So let's keep going. There was somebody who had said something about Cyberfrog after I had put that in there. Oh, Nola Nerd put in here. I have a video of my 8-year-old son reading Cyberfrog aloud. I'll post later on. He was excited for that book. Micah, have you been damaged by Kobe's death like all the other overdramatic people on YouTube? You know, I was not a big Kobe Bryant fan. I was never a big basketball guy, though. You know, I was never very good at it because I'm big, and even though I'm tall, I'm not basketball tall. You know, I'm not like 6'6". I'm 6'2", and I'm giant and bulky. I'm built like an offensive lineman. So I actually like showed off like how strong I am on graded .5 this last week, with one of my weights, and like how easily I could throw it around and so on and so forth. And I also showed off that I'm a big guy, like in the sense that like my belly's huge, but it doesn't go past my hips, you know. So anyway, yeah, oddly enough, I still have one of my weights sitting right here, like literally right here by my desk. So, in fact, let me show you guys real quick. Come here, you. $35. Goodness. I'm so tired. I'm sorry. Anyway, so that's my answer to that. I don't see Yang getting picked by Biden. I would say that Biden's going to pick an incumbent. I would say that, yeah, Yang would probably be picked by Bernie, if anyone. Let's see. They're not going to beat Trump anyway, so it's kind of a moot point, but do a pose. I already did a pose. Not to mention you can't see it with like the way the camera's oriented. So, let's see here. Well, oddly enough, this is the overflow question from Angry Green Boss. He says, if Trump gets kicked out, would the left still go after him or leave him in the dust once he's out of office? Well, there was that one DA in New York that said he was going to try to bring Trump up on criminal charges, but that never went anywhere. I would imagine he would probably still have a vendetta. But I think Trump's actually moving all of his like personal home and everything into Florida, if I recall correctly. He's like moving out of New York, which I can't say I blame him. I mean, Florida is the place to be right now. Florida and Texas are two of the like main, really just the South in general is like is booming, you know, more so than I think it ever really has. So, Ultimate Agent, I did get your DM on Facebook. So yeah, I did. I just didn't message you back because there really wasn't anything else for me to say. Just that, okay, now I know who you are. So, and don't worry, your secret's safe with me. Because I'm not the type of person to kind of do anything with that. And H250, I agree completely. You should definitely always go out and vote. Every time. Yeah, I can't say that I would blame Trump. Why live in a place that despises you? So, do I want to move to Florida? I want to move to North Carolina or Texas. But if neither are available, I'll probably stay here in Illinois. I'm just gonna move to a country town, and just rent a nice little house, and have a few dogs, and just kind of live in peace. Kind of tired of the city, kind of ready to move and settle down. So, all right, that was the last of the politics questions. Real quick, to answer John Weitzel, if we don't get the TTS heresy scene this week, can we do it for next week? Yeah, I mean, hell, today if I get $24, then I'll do the reaction today. If not, then I'll do it on Saturday. We'll put that as the first stretch goal, and then we'll do just anime cringe from there. So, I will say though, I really liked Texas, for those who are commenting on stuff like that. I really enjoyed being down there. I miss it, honestly. Houston was really nice. So was Dallas. No, I'm sorry, not Dallas. Austin. Was it Austin? No, it was Dallas. I was in Dallas. I drove through Austin. Austin has some pretty sizable buildings too, and some of the big insurance buildings there. The road that goes between them, the highway is beneath them, so you're even lower under these buildings, and they just seem that much taller. Nothing compared to Chicago, though. I mean, you want to feel small? Stand at the base of the Sears Tower and look up. Every time I'm in town, I do that, or try to. Dude, I feel that big. It's crazy to me. I love walking down the river, too. And oddly enough, there's a really good shot that Brian and Armand did of Two Prudential Plaza and the Chicago River. That I'm quite fond of. So, I actually have a video that's 45 minutes long for those of you guys who like me commenting on Englewood and wanted to see more of that. I got a really long video I'm going to upload. Hopefully people will actually watch it this time, because the last Englewood video I updated, we didn't even get 400 views on it. So, I think people are just ready for the book to come out, personally. Anyway. So yeah, that answers that question. We've only got 2 more, and then I'll take some questions from the chat. Alpha Incel wants to know, opinion on Reset Era spreading false information on Sly Cooper 5. So, if somebody could fill me in a little bit more on what's going on there, I'd appreciate it. But I'm not really surprised that Reset Era would lie about anything. That's kind of what they do. That and apparently diddle kids. So, oh, yeah. Ultimate Age put in here. I sent Mike a video about Katawa Shoujo, which is Emmy's route in a nutshell. I don't know. Actually, I don't know if I watched that one. But, I mean, I've already done Emmy's route, so I know it pretty well. I do remember somebody sending me the image of, "Are you okay?" or, "Dear God, were you born on a minefield?" Because for those who don't know, Emmy is... The gimmick with Katawa Shoujo, and I'm probably saying the Japanese wrong, is that every one of the girls that you could romance in it is disabled somehow, in one way or another. There's one who's mute, there's one who has a social issue, there's she's autistic or something like that, there's one who has no arms, there's one who has no legs, and there's one who's blind. So, I think the stream that I did of Katawa Shoujo is up somewhere, or it's unlisted. But I actually played most of it offline, and then I reviewed it on Micah and The Hatman earlier in the year. Because if I recall correctly, it was Darth Bobcat who paid me to play it. And it was so shocking as to how well the romances were written. A lot better than what Japan is putting out there, that's for sure. I'm actually kind of hoping if I can convince Hatman to do a longer entertainment podcast this week, because I watched some anime. You know, I'll review an anime before we take off, because I'm watching one to review for the podcast. So I finished another that I wasn't the biggest fan of. So anyway, but yeah, not surprised on Reset Era spreading false information on Sly Cooper. You know, just not surprised. Hey, Lucius Swedes here. How you doing, buddy? Finally, Ontus Whisper said, thoughts on the Commando 2 remaster being censored. Nazi imagery removed, as well as co-op. You know, I am not a big fan of removing anything, especially that, and not because it's Nazi imagery. If it was a game about fighting communists and you were removing communist imagery, I'd be pissed. Excuse me. Reason being is I'm a stickler for historical accuracy. I'm a stickler for if your game is set during a dark era, don't hesitate to make it dark, because the darker you make a story sometimes before you get into that edgy area, the more heroic and the more light you can see from the hero, because that's what they have to overcome. You know, my favorite example of that, I'm wearing a Batman shirt today, but so you don't know this, I do like Superman. I really like some parts of the 90s Superman. I think that the death and return of Superman is one of the greatest stories ever told. Specifically because it actually tells you so much about the character. I actually have not seen progress on what you're working on, Swede. But hopefully Hatman will send it to me soon. But anyway, when it comes right down to it, you shouldn't be afraid of telling those darker elements and showing that imagery. I know it's not comfortable to sit there and do a character model of a Nazi. That's not comfortable at all. I say this as somebody who, you know, would have been thrown into a furnace during that time period. You know? And I'm not offended by it. You know? I would probably, given my ethnicity, have more of a reason to be offended than anybody. You know? But I don't see Jews out there calling for this sort of thing to be censored. You know? Or at least not that I know of. Because it's part of history. We can't really erase it any more than we can erase the Babylonians. And they enslaved us, you know? So when it comes right down to it, I think that that's a stupid thing to do. It was a horrifying time. But part of what makes the greatest generation is they fought fucking evil. And they were able to beat it. You know, you should never, ever, ever shy away from telling that story. And I know Germany calls for it because it is against the law in Germany to portray that. Fuck it, make a German version. That's what every other game developer fucking does, especially with World War II stuff. You know? Germany trying to censor stuff. Who'd have thunk it? It's almost like it's in their history or something. So... And I think I should probably expand on the death and return of Superman thing, shouldn't I? So, the death and return of Superman, the reason I think it is so good is largely, again, because of the willingness to show the heroic sacrifice. You know, it's also, you know, the one kicker about any superhero that I don't think is often said is the willingness to die for a city, the willingness to die for someone else, the willingness to lay down your life. And it's not often that in superhero comics you really feel that. You feel like somebody could die, you know? And as such, the stakes don't really feel like they're there sometimes. Well, in this one, you had Doomsday, this creature that was beating the ever-loving shit out of the entire Justice League, making a mockery of some pretty powerful members of it. And next thing you know, Superman's in a one-on-one brawl with this fucking thing, to the point where it kills him, you know? And you see that element, that Kansas country boy, in a sense of, for those who don't know, Midwesterners are big on loyalty. And you see that young man, and then Metropolis is in Illinois, so he's still in the Midwest, basically putting his foot down and saying, this is the line, you will not cross this, I will die before you do. And he does. You know, I think that in a way says so much about Superman. You know, that even an invulnerable superhero, or close to it, is willing to face death right in the eye and say, I'm not moving, you move. You know, that's one of those things that I think really is what makes it a great story. You know, it's probably one of the best Superman stories of all time, if not the best. You know, I don't even know what else would be considered the best Superman story. Like, maybe For the Man Who Has Everything? Because that was Alan Moore. Godfall's not bad. Not big on Birthright, personally. I didn't like the idea of retconning Man of Steel. The comic, not the movie. John Byrne's Superman is very different, to say the least. But that's not a bad thing. There's some things I object to in it, but I thought it was, you know, he understood the character better than a lot of other people did. Trying to think other really good Superman stories. That aren't Elseworlds. I will say that All-Star Superman's another really good one. But I'm trying to think, like, main continuity. You know, I would say one of the best runs was probably the pre-Bendis run, which was, I don't remember who was doing it. It was like one of the guys who worked on Annihilation was writing Superman. But I don't remember who was doing Action at the time. But Action was really good too. So that was actually probably one of my favorite Superman runs of all time. Since Louis Simonson. So what's so funny about Truth, Justice, the American Way? That's the one that Superman versus the Elite is based on, if I recall correctly. It's Manchester Black's introduction. And that's an amazing story. So alright, so let's answer just a couple more questions from the chat real quick. And then we'll go ahead and call it. I'm going to go ahead and probably succumb to my medication and hopefully sleep for a very long time so that I can get back on track. So while I do that, well, you guys can throw a few questions at me if you like. I'm going to check a couple things. So Englewood's actually doing pretty good. We're at 13,037. We picked up another backer. Ah. Because of Brexit, Sealand has invaded mainland Britain, is now being called Northwest Sealand. Okay. Um, let's see here. Melee Brawler says, do you guys think that Election Day should be a national holiday? No. Cooper's Revenge says, what is it about the Germans and the need to try to take over the world? They're like Pinky and the Brain, but with more genocide. Oh, wait. I said I was going to talk about anime, didn't I? But yeah, redeemed villains is always a good thing. I'm going to talk about that in my Things I Love Venom thing. Which, update on that. Introduction is almost completely finished and edited. The audio has been recorded. I've edited about half of it. So if you're looking forward to another Things I Love video, there's that. Did I try out Joker and MK11? Yeah, he's definitely a Joker character, or he's definitely Joker. The problem is he's in Mortal Kombat 11. And I forgot how weak Mortal Kombat 11 is compared to 10. But he's fun. I mean, and, you know, he feels like the Joker. Servant of God said, are you going to Ethan's Comicsgate convention in May 2021? Yes, I will be there. The instant he announced it, I said, yep, I'll be there. I will be there. I will probably have comics and posters and stuff for people to buy, that we'll print off before we go. By May 2021, we'll have had Englewood, possibly 2 Englewood books done, then, and I mean graphic novels, and then Project Lazarus and 3 Nights, 4 Days, and The First Servant. So I'll have plenty of merch to stuff. If you go to it next year, please do bring your copy of Englewood if Englewood does not hit 15K, and I will go ahead and sign that book for you. So just keep it in good condition. If you want to have 2 copies of the book, keep in mind there is a double copy tier that you can switch over to if you want to. And just so you can have one that's signed and then one you can read. That is something, by the way, we are going to keep doing, is we're going to continue to do a dual copy tier with campaigns in the future. We're just not going to do digital anymore. So to give you guys an example, 3 Nights, 4 Days' tiers will be the book, then 2 books. 2 books is also good for international, because if you want to go in together on the price because the shipping is going to be as expensive as it is, then that's the option. Then it'll be book plus sketchbook, which we're doing a 3 Nights, 4 Days sketchbook. Then there's other tiers, like one where you can be in the book for a certain amount of dollars. Then there's another one where the sketchbook will have a blank page in it for sketching, that Preston will do a personal sketch for you of a character from the book. And then there will be an original art tier where you'll get the book and the sketchbook, but you'll also get a piece of original comic book art from the book, meaning one of the actual pages. That'll be like a $400 tier. So that one will, I think a lot of people are going to go for that. We're gonna limit that to 10, but if there's enough demand, we'll do more. But yeah, so let's talk about an anime real quick before and then I'll answer a couple more questions that I'm going to take off. So I watched an anime all the way through. What was it called? I think it's like Cabaneri and the Iron Fortress, or Cabaneri of the Iron Fortress. Which somebody had kind of told me it was sort of like a zombie answer to Attack on Titan. And I think Attack on Titan is interesting, but it didn't really grab me as much as like that kind of a dark anime sort of would. Though I will say the art design in it is gorgeous. But the will you pin a link to your Indiegogo page in the Discord? I tried to search you up on Indiegogo's website. I couldn't find you. Sure, it's in there. And then Hardboiled, can you do me a favor? Put the Indiegogo link in the chat for Hank Hill there. Actually, no, never mind. I'll do it. So Hank, this is for you, buddy. There you go. So that's the link to Englewood. But anyway, but yeah, basically, Cabaneri the Iron Fortress is sort of like the zombie answer to Attack on Titan. It's a similar concept in this idea that humans have walled off a bunch of cities and because of an exterior threat. In this case, it's these zombies called Cabaneri that have an iron cage over their hearts. And the only way to kill them is to pierce the heart cage and take out their heart or cut their head off. And it's a decent action anime. There's some pretty good tension in it. The only problem that I had with it is it's kind of predictable. Like, the instant that the antagonist shows up, you know he's the antagonist. Because he's been filling one of the characters' heads with all this faux Darwinian bullshit. And you're like, oh, this is the bad guy. Like, so he's the most, like, obvious bad guy I think I've ever seen in anime. The only thing that they could have done to make him more obvious was to give him Satan horns and have a neon sign over his fucking head that said, this is the bad guy. But even though it was predictable, it was at least fun to watch. You know, it's animated pretty well. There's a couple of interesting twists. There's a pretty good Wham episode, where you see just how evil the bad guys are. And I think that is a good thing, honestly, whenever you're telling a story, is don't be afraid to have a Wham episode. That's something that J. Michael Straczynski will tell you. Excuse me. And yeah. But it ends well. It ends about how I thought it was going to end. Yeah, it's kind of, it's a fun show. You know, if you've got Amazon Prime and you want something to watch, it's not a waste of your time. I think that what carries it really is the fact that the characters are strong, because the concept really does feel like an Attack on Titan ripoff. You know, even the art style feels very much like Attack on Titan. But there's also some, like, one of the monsters that's in it feels like one of the demons from Princess Mononoke, which I thought was really interesting. So, yeah. Needless to say, like, I would say that it's not a bad anime to watch. It's nice and bloody, which is what I like. There's tension in it. There's loss in it. There are stakes. You do wonder if main characters can die at any time, which is a good feeling to have in an anime. Yeah, it's fun. You know, it's a fun watch. Hardboiled Entertainment says great Superman stories, For Tomorrow and Superman Grounded. I would agree. Well, actually, no. I've read For Tomorrow. For Tomorrow's pretty good. I've never read Grounded. So yeah, and then the next one that I'm going to be doing, the one I'm going to try to review for tomorrow, is Blade of the Immortal, which I knew about because I had heard that Takeshi Miike had directed a movie of it, and that's a story that's existed for a long time. I just never got around to reading it or anything, but I just remember a lot of people telling me, it's like, well, if you like Berserk and you like samurai shit, you'd love Blade of the Immortal. So, goodness. I'm very tired. Anyway, what was I saying? I completely forgot. Oh, anyway, but yeah, Blade of the Immortal, I had just heard that Takashi Miike was working, or had done a video of it, or a movie of it, and I just thought it was interesting that that would be a story that he would take on, because I remember Takashi Miike from Ichi the Killer, which, yes, I have watched, and is one of the most disturbing movies I've ever watched in my life. A lot of it being, it's fucking ridiculous. Yeah. I'm looking forward to watching it. Because it's blood and guts. It's dark. The sort of stuff that I'm into. So I'll definitely, gonna try to watch it while I try to go to sleep, and then when I wake up, I'll keep watching it. So, Grounded is Straczynski. Okay, I'll definitely look into it at some point. There was another one. Somebody asked me if I had seen Night of Hope. That is a good question. It doesn't, doesn't ring a bell. A video on YouTube here that I found. It's a 13-minute thing. Is it of a knight saving a red-haired girl? Is that what it is? Micah should be known as the Man of Steel if he can digest that much gore. Is it really surprising that I can handle a Takeshi Miike film? Like, Crimson King I like. But then again, that's a Stephen King reference. Or no, the Red King is, because that's from Dark Tower. But, that's a historically accurate cinematic short. So yeah, and it's of a knight in plate armor rescuing a girl, right? Because that's what I see here, and I'm watching pieces of it right now. I just have the audio off. Definitely accurate about the fact that he can take a sword hit from in plate armor, because that's just gonna bounce off. That's part of the reason why plate armor was so revolutionary, is because you couldn't pierce it. You know, it was very hard to. It had very few weak spots, and you were wearing chainmail underneath it. So there were very few places where you could really get to somebody. You had to aim for a couple things here. You had to aim for the back of the knee, which I just watched somebody do, and underneath the armpit was another weak spot, and then the eye holes of your armor. So a lot of duels between knights would usually end up with somebody getting stabbed through the eye and dying that way. So, but yeah, from what I just watched, it's very historically accurate. I like that. Anyway, but no, does it really surprise people that I could sit through Ichi the Killer? Because I am, that sort of thing doesn't bother me. Mostly because Ichi the Killer is kind of ridiculous. You know, that's part of the reason why. Sometimes there's some points of it that actually feel like itchy and scratchy. You know. Nervous around nudity? That's okay. I don't think there's anything wrong with that. Some people are more squeamish about these sorts of things. For me, it doesn't really do anything. It's all about, like, intent. Context matters for me. You know. Okay, let's see. Let's answer a couple more questions. Yeah, I'm a metalhead. Like, I'm big on, like, blood and guts don't bother me at all, you know? It's, if I see it in real life, it's a completely different reaction. You know, because when it's an actual person in front of you that's hurt, then that's a completely different scenario. It's very different. It's a completely different reaction from me. Because you got to keep in mind, like, I worked security, and I worked as a bouncer and all this other stuff. And, you know, I've seen people, like, with their bones shattered. One guy, I think I've told the story about the guy in the hallway who got his ass kicked. Like, his orbital bone was fucking crushed. Like, this was all swollen. It was just, you know, and he hadn't even tried to blow his nose. His nose was probably broke, too. And if he did try to blow his nose, it would have gotten even worse. But, I have seen people who do break their noses and then they blow their nose and then their eye just swells up. There's other stuff that I've seen, too. Like, I've seen, like, really nasty broken bones, stuff like that. I had a really bad one myself, actually. So this wrist here cracks constantly. It pops because this had a compound fracture. Like, the bones were, like, almost... Let me put it this way. This part of my hand right here, the lower part of the palm, was touching my forearm from the break. It was that bad. Yeah, it was very scary. So, but yeah, that's not something that's, like, uncommon for me. But the reaction's different, you know, because I've had to help people out whenever they're injured and things like that, and I know CPR and I know first aid and that sort of thing. So that's usually my reaction, is to run towards it and try to help somebody out. So it's completely different than, like, watching a movie. I think that more so than anything, the reason I can deal with stuff like that is because I have a really good suspension of disbelief. You know, it just doesn't bother me. You know, it's just like, it's not real. You know, and sometimes it feels so unreal that you can't really get it. You know, the emotionally impacting stuff is what really gets me. You know, like if I'm playing Brutal Doom, I'm cackling like a fucking schoolgirl. If I'm playing the beginning of The Last of Us, I might shed a tear. I might be a big pussy and shed a tear, you know? Might happen. So, because that's a powerful opening. Okay, a couple more questions, because I've seen Holy Ninja Toe, Crystal Hydra, and Mr. Matchstick have all asked this more than once. To answer the question from Holy Ninja Toe about whether or not Devilman tackles salvation, the answer is very much no. Devilman, Guy's an atheist, so that should kind of tell you, like, it's basically his whole thing is that heaven and hell are dicks in equal measure, you know, which it doesn't really make sense because he doesn't really show heaven doing anything that dickish. You know, if anything, hell comes across like, it's one of the big inconsistencies about Guy's work that actually does drive me crazy, is that God is told to you from the perspective of demons, which they're gonna make him out to be a dick. So it's sort of like, you know, it doesn't, it's like, whatever, you know, it never really bothered me, but It doesn't, it doesn't tackle that at all, you know. Oh yeah, I definitely play Brutal Doom. I first got into Brutal Doom back in 2016, and no, 2015 actually. Like a month before, we knew that Doom 4 was going to happen, but that like a month before the first trailer dropped, I was playing Brutal Doom, and then they dropped that trailer, and everybody's like, "Holy shit! They made Brutal Doom the game," which is basically what Doom 2016 is. Is what I think it was version 16 was Brutal Doom at the time, and oddly enough, that's when it had picked up steam as a mod, because Yahtzee did a video on it on his channel, and then Total Biscuit did a video on it too, that highlighted it. So, yeah, very much a game I really enjoy. Let's see. Tom the Fish has been asking this. How would you write a Fate story? Like what servants, plot, etc.? I don't know enough about Fate to really say. I've watched 2 Fate things. I've watched Zero, which I enjoyed, and I've watched Unlimited Blade Works, which I thought sucked. So I don't know enough about it, really, the universe, to really say much about it. Let's see here. Alistair Folgore, save that one for tomorrow because Hatman will want to weigh in on it. And then finally, do I ever consider EMS? No. Not something I really want to do. What historical events would you like a movie, TV show, or comic to be made about? I really want to see a biopic of Richard the Lionheart. We see so much of Robin Hood, but we never see Richard the Lionheart. I'd love to have a Richard the Lionheart film, by a Richard the Lionheart biopic. I would really love to see it. He's one of my favorite historical figures because he was just so willing to go and start another crusade and lead it to take back the Holy Land, despite the fact that, the Crusaders had literally been chased out of it, except for like Akka. Akka hadn't, still had, Europeans there, but that's one thing from history I would really like to see in a film. Let's see here. There's one more that I missed. Okay, last one. Black Knight Rex wants to know, given the chance to write Star Wars, what sort of a story would you make? So, the thing about Star Wars is... Oh, and I can't miss Crystal Hydra either. Fuck. The thing about Star Wars is that that would be a contract job from a writing perspective. The ideal thing for me, of all things Star Wars, would be if they hired me to write a movie trilogy about the Mandalorian Wars. That would be the one job that, if offered to me, I would accept it immediately. And then Crystal Hydra said, where do you think the Monsterverse will go after Kong versus Godzilla? Well, monsters like Rodan, Mothra, Mechagodzilla, and Gurneus get their own movies, or will we see Zilla? I don't think that we should do Zilla. But I think that we're going to see the return of Rodan. We're going to see the return of Mothra. I would say that the next to come along is going to be Batra. And then maybe Space Godzilla. I don't know. I'm trying to think if there's another monster. Because, I mean, King Ghidorah's gone. So... I don't know. I really don't know. Like, Mechagodzilla or Mechaghidorah would be another interesting one. Yeah, I don't know. I really don't know, but I really do think that we're going to see a return of Rodan for sure. Gamera would be interesting. Gamera in the MonsterVerse. I'd watch it. I like big fucking turtle. What's not to love? Yeah, like I said before, like for those who don't know, I love turtles. And I'm actually a big Ninja Turtles fan, oddly enough. I even like the comics, even though they're so different. If you've never read a Turtles comic, like the mainline Turtles comics, they're a lot darker than the TV show was. You know, I had a couple, like my dad got me a couple of Turtles comics back in the day. I only had a couple. But, yeah, I'm a big Ninja Turtles fan. They were my jam. I was a little kid, so don't hold it against me. When I was a little kid, I actually had Ninja Turtles pajamas. I did. I begged for them. And my parents got them for me. So, I was very happy. I wore them all the time. If I remember correctly, there's Hatman. I think that they were Donatello. So, and yeah, he's at work. That's why he's not in here. But yeah, Donatello's my guy. Big fan. Donatello, always my guy. But yeah, I was a huge Turtles fan back in the day, man. That is another one of those comics where if I ever got the chance to write it, I would jump at Ninja Turtles, like instantly. I would be all over it to write Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles. Man, that would be so cool. It really would, man. I love this. I fucking love the Ninja Turtles. They're so fucking cool. I want an Englewood Ninja Turtles crossover. I really do. That'd be so fucking cool, man. I can even play out like the fight scene in my head of how it would go. Because for those who don't know, I think I've mentioned that and IDW will never hire me. Just like I'm again voted for Donald Trump. Never happening. But the fact of the matter is like, or for those who don't know, is where I was going with that. Sorry, still tired. The one thing that I would do, or one thing that people don't know, is that Elijah, after the time jump a year afterwards, he uses Tonfa, but they're a weapon system called the High Impact Tonfa. And what they are is they're sectioned. So with the push of certain buttons that are on it, you can link them into a staff, or you can put them together, and there's a cord that will connect them and turn them into a large size set of nunchaku as well. And yeah. Well, here's the thing, Tom. You have to keep this in mind, buddy. And I do appreciate you having faith in me. I don't want you to think that I don't. Because I do think that if I wrote the Ninja Turtles, it would be a great comic book and people would want to buy it. But you have to keep something in mind. I'm a public figure. My Twitter's out there. You know, YouTube channel, the whole 9 yards. The fact that I lean right. Like, this is the company that hired Aubrey Sitterson to write G.I. Joe. Like, it would never happen. Not currently. I don't see it. Someday, maybe, like a different company will publish me. I would think that right now the best bet would probably be Alterna, which would be cool. I'd like to work for Peter Samedi. Peter's a really good guy. But anyway, just the fact of the matter is it's not something that it's not in the cards. It's unfortunate. Someday it might be, though. Like, this is like, we're talking about the year of our Lord 2020. We're not talking about like 2026. Things could change. We'll see what happens. But yeah, I think that it would be interesting. Yeah, they fired Sitterson, but because of his behavior on comments on 9/11, not because he was not because of anything else. It took a big public outcry for them to get rid of him. If Aubrey Citizen never threw out that 9/11 tweet back in 2017, he'd still be there. So, but yeah, man, Englewood versus Turtles would be such a fucking great fight, because one of the things about Elijah's fighting style is that he switches between the 3 weapon types depending on the situation, and can do so in a flowing motion. So one minute he's whipping around these tonfa, the next minute he hits a couple of buttons, and then he's whacking you with a nunchaku. Then 2 or 3 guys try to swarm him, and then the next thing you know, he's holding a bow staff. And you're wondering, how the hell is he doing this? And that's part of what makes him sort of this urban legend of a character, is that, there's rumors that he's bulletproof. There's rumors that he can pull weapons out of thin air. There's rumors that he can fight for days at a time and not get tired, things like that. And that's part of what makes why I called it Englewood instead of the Saint of Englewood, Anyway, I think that's kind of the most I've got for that. But yeah, sadly, let me say this, is like, yeah, it's unfortunate that it's not in the cards for me to write a good independent book and then get hired by another company. It really does suck. It's not fun. It's not a fun feeling. And I've talked to other guys behind the scenes that are in CG we've got great books planned for the next year, but it's going to take some time for us to get our numbers up to a point where we can make a living off of this, and we're going to have to get to a point where we're not going to be able to just live off of 1 comic a year. We're going to have to do 4 or 5, I think, or 3 or 4 rather, and I think that I can do it this year. I think that honestly, hold on a second. Camera's being wonky. There we go. I think that if we get the same amount of backers that we did on Englewood for the next, and the next books are all graphic novels, so the dollar amount is admittedly higher. We get the same amount of backers, I think that we can actually make a go of this, because even if everybody backed at the minimum tier after shipping, which is, because that's going to include materials, it's like close to $10, but the book is going to cost $30. And then if we got another 520 backers, that's $21,000, just a shade under, at base, and then some of the other tiers will help out with that. So I think it's a possibility for me within the next year to be doing comic books full time, but we really have to push, I think that, and maybe this is my ego talking, I hope I don't sound egocentric. I think when people read Englewood, the name Micah Curtis will finally mean something. And then when the next books come out, there will be a big demand for my work. And I think that it may even get to a point where I'm doing my own books and I'm writing them, and then I'm going and I'm writing other people's books too, and then getting a page rate for those. Because I'm willing to write commercially. So, Another thing that I'll say, if you do want, I'm doing consulting work too. For those who don't know, I actually just did consulting on an independent game that's going to be coming out called Sorceress, on the media end. So, helped out with like putting trailers together and advising on that. Basically, just as an advisor, you know, I'm cheap when it comes to that. It's because it's basically a few hours of work to get people ready to who to pitch, who to send the game to, the type of things to look out for, things along those lines. How to help with the social media presence, blah blah blah. So I have a feeling things are very much going to change for us in the future. So things are going to get better. You know, I'm going to make sure that they do. I'm just trying to decide what I would do for a brand, you know? Like, I thought about Guerrilla Comics. I've thought about Crusader Comics. I didn't like going with Crusader. I didn't like going with Guerrilla because I don't like it would confuse people because Brian Kriskow does Six Gun Gorilla. You know, he's the guy known for the gorilla character, so I don't think that would really fit. I also thought of Sanguine Comics. You know, because of how bloody some of them are. But I don't know. I don't know if we're going to do something like that. So, real quick, Gojira says the future is books printed on demand. Only publish the books people want to buy. No overshipping or underselling. Yeah, I think that there's a possibility that in the future a lot of people are going to do crowdfunding first, and then they're going to put like an Amazon version on Amazon, and Amazon will actually print the book and sell and ship it. So, I think that will probably happen at some point. What are the odds that I would write for your boy? If Richard ever asked me to write a story for him, I would do it. Mostly because he's a buddy of mine. But especially if I like the pitch, you know, and the story's cool, I would definitely do it. So why not just Curtis Comics? I know, right? I should probably think simple. By the way, Hank Hill, did you see did you get the link to Englewood? Let me know. All right, I think that we got everything. So tomorrow we will be returning. We will be doing the podcast at 5 o'clock, unless something crazy comes up. Other than that, I'm trying to think if there's really anything else. I don't know what all we're going to cover. There's some impeachment stuff to talk about in politics. In entertainment, like I said, I'm going to try to review Sword of the Immortal, or Blade of the Immortal. I don't know what Hatman's got for us, but hopefully there'll be other stuff to do too. So, and then sadly Hatman does not have the hentai hot sauce yet, but yeah, we'll go from there. All right. Well, folks, I do want to thank you all for watching. Glad to answer everybody's questions. Glad to do this live so I can have a longer show out of it, for sure. Because 17 minutes is not enough. So, not for an overflow. We do long form stuff here, you know. All right, folks. But we're going to go ahead and take off. Yeah. Well, I say we being me. So, I'm going to go watch some stuff and drink a soda. But until tomorrow, my name is Micah Curtis, your favorite vanilla gorilla. I'll see you next time.